So the first round here in turn 6 actually is occurring, and Portuguese have sailed around, taking 20% losses in doing so, to make it to Goa. Now we see Albuquerque. He's got a 555 rating. Now, he's a weird leader because he's both a naval and a conquistador, and unlike some of these, he can just flip over at will. So he's navigated the ships there, flipped over, become a conquistador, and here's where he's really potent. He's going to use the conquistador table here with his values of 15 and roll on here to see what he does to that native force. On a 1, he'll just eliminate it entirely, basically. He gets a 0 or a 10, which is not good. That's a resistance 100%. So if he wants to attack, and he does, he's going to have to face that full 60. This could be a problem because he doesn't have much force there. So I believe the natives end up having a leader out of this. Let me make sure. Yeah. Let me check the rolls. So what happened is the native army was routed, which would have destroyed it, except they were sufficient to destroy Albuquerque's army. And this is me playing with the rules a little bit here. I found the natives too difficult to deal with in any reasonable fashion if you follow the rules, which is that they kind of go into hiding in the territory and don't have any real effect. If you win the battle and force these indigenous locals to dissipate, to be destroyed, they would have to retreat normally. I've ruled that they just are destroyed. That makes conquest of the Aztecs or Goa or whatever possible. In this case, however, they lost the battle. Albuquerque was not killed, but things look very bad for Portugal. They're probably going to lose Goa. At the end of the round, there's going to be at the end of the turn, there's going to be an attack if those natives can't be removed from there. And the Portuguese really don't have enough of an army to do anything about it. They have 3 cav they could sail back and get, but that's it. Well, the Spanish opening round was not a good one. They failed to deal with these revolts. In fact, they were driven out by the revolting troops in both cases. Over here they did very little. I think they reduced one of these revolts slightly. The Habsburgs did okay. They marched in, faced the French, took greater losses but didn't lose a battle, which is important. But then, over here wasn't bad at all. Cortez landed in the Aztec territories. He now has some 30 native troops in his support, and he managed to defeat the remainder. So he's captured this area. This area is now cleared of natives. He has to take Tenochtitlan out in order to make that a permanent situation, and he's got to take a total of 3 areas out in order to completely conquer the Aztecs. But here's the big problem. That little expedition fleet they had failed to make it back onto the main map. Now, what do I do with this? And this is really the problem. I shouldn't have been able to invest in it without word coming back. I'm going to leave it there, but you can see where my playing a little too loose with those got me into some trouble. Technically, that shouldn't be there yet. In fact, it should never be there because they haven't found their way through there. And in fact, I ought to be removing, you know what, I'm going to penalize them for it because they shouldn't have been there. And I'm going to remove that along with the areas that they found that they could not have gotten word back yet. Moving into the second round, we're seeing the situation developing a little bit more. Turks moving down, trying to get to the position where they can attack Egypt. They got a big problem, though. They can't use their naval supply the way they did before without being at risk because Grimani is out there with his big navy. They don't really want to face that. Venice is laying siege to Hellas. They're moving into place to lay siege to, say, Bosnia or something along those lines. Poles opened up a siege. The French moved into Milan, defeated the Habsburg army, and they're going to start cutting south and head towards Naples at this point. The Habsburgs could drive through into France itself. We'll see whether that'll happen. They don't have a very big force, so it's pretty iffy. You see a redeployment of the Spaniards getting kind of control of their revolt situation. They defeated, getting Cordoba down here. They defeated Sierra Nevada. They quelched the unrest in Naples. They succeeded with Cortez at that Nochitlan, but they haven't succeeded with the siege yet. They defeated the army, but they've still got to actually take the city for it to count for anything. Other countries, though, France established itself with a siege up here at Roussillon, positioning themselves to go into Artois, heading down for Naples. Ugly, ugly, ugly. Continuation with the Venetian, with the Poles there. The Venetians made a landing at Hellas, but the Turks came and destroyed it. Not a major victory, but still significant. On the other hand, the Caliph of Egypt rushed up and completely annihilated the main Turkish army, knocking, and we see a lot of leaders in that lost pile. Not quite dead, but not going to be available for a while. Turkey's having trouble. They're not going to be able, I think, to defeat the Mamluks at this point. Alright, well that pushes us into round 3, and let's see if it's gonna, well, I gotta check if it happens when I'm about to play it. I can't just do it now, but I do have to check if the turn ends. On a 1 it does. Nope. Well, in this phase I realized I was silly hauling Albuquerque back, so I brought him back again. This time though, he managed to get some indigenous forces on his side. He also used the 5 points of the colony itself. It wasn't sufficient. The indigenous forces were wiped out, but he can stay and try again, assuming there's more rounds. Elsewhere, well, not a lot going good for the Spaniards. The French are down in Napoli. Habsburgs are coming down to follow them. French siege continuing here. For the Turks, things kind of went exciting. They smashed down into the Mamluks and were completely wiped out. I don't know, did that happen before? Anyway, the Mamluks pushed forward again this turn and smacked into the Turkish army with no leader. They were defeated there. Things are kind of, up in the air. It doesn't look good for anybody, which reminds me a lot of my very first time playing, where everything kind of fizzled early on. Anyway, Cortez continuing his job here and not getting anywhere. Everything's kind of in an ugly state for the big powers. Only England's kind of sitting there saying, hey, I'm not in a war. Excellent. Nothing's going wrong. I'm ahead of the game right now. And lo and behold, the turn ended there after 3 rounds. It was pretty dense for a bad weather turn, but that's going to be some bad effects, I think, across the board. We're going to see what happens, but the forces of chaos, as they were, other than the players, are kind of taking hold here. Alright, let's take a quick look at what's going to happen here. I calculated out the modifiers. It's a +3. That's not very good at all. So the natives get an 8. They wipe out the entire force, and they're going to do 4 levels. They wipe the colony out. Goa is finished. Portugal can reinsert it at some point, but their special rules go on, and that's not good at all for them. Albuquerque can load up on this and travel over to the nearest safe location. Okay, so here at the end of the turn, after redeployments, etc., peace breaks out. First of all, Venice and Turkey agreed to a white peace. That pulls the Mamluks along with them. Turkey wants the opportunity to fight the Poles, and Venice is perfectly happy to get out of that war with Turkey. and save the Mamluks for a little bit longer in the next period where they'll be pulling in lots of income, etc. They think they'll be able, with the Mamluks on their track where they are, to be able to probably intervene and help them. The real danger is that turn one. Turn one is when, or the first time that they're attacked, because Venice is unlikely to make the diplomatic effort on Mamluks, although they might in order to help protect them. But turn one is the serious, dangerous point, and the Turks will usually declare war on the Mamluks at that point. Now, just to prevent the possibility of a Venetian diplomatic intervention. France and Spain both wanted a peace. It would have been a peace of level 2, which could be one province. Spain would have to give, I believe, $50 up, because France owns no provinces. They couldn't demand any. But France said, the hell with that. I want Naples. I really want Naples. And Spain was unwilling to part with a province, especially such a valuable one. They're not going to get victory points because they don't have all of Italy under control. Some of it's in revolt. So they're depriving France. They could have gotten out of the war. I'm not sure they made the right choice here. They may end up paying a bigger penalty later on, but they certainly deprived France of a valuable plum. Anyway, I figured out the points for the turn, which aren't too exciting. You know, we're seeing a few points moving here and there. Turkey's got 4 up here, you know. But figuring out the end of round points has been a little bit more enlightening. England, for example, picked up 70 points because of their Scotland, because of Calais, which was actually worth 80. I misordered these, and I'm not sure I have it right. So Calais is worth 100, Scotland's worth 75. I shouldn't have them both at that value, so I rated Calais as less important, which is what I think I meant. Let's look at the next one. Spain only gained 10 points. They got very little in their favor. They got the Holy Roman Empire. That's the only thing, and they took a penalty for Spanish Italy. France got negative 20. They didn't gain anything, and they took a penalty for not gaining anything in Italy. There's less penalties in this game, and they're more balanced. The victory conditions seem a little bit more balanced, although there's the big bonuses. So if we go on to Portugal, they gained 105. Now, Portugal's not doing well, but the fact that they got the Tordesillas Treaty off, and that nobody is in their zone, gave them 100 victory points. Spain had a likewise similar one. I didn't think they did. I thought they just wanted the treaty. But they're not taking a penalty, but they're not getting some 15 points or so, which is kind of, I should have noticed that. Turkey picked up 10 points. Not for much, just because there's no Christian ports on the Black or Caspian Sea, and that's almost impossible to have happen. So that was kind of a gimme. And then finally Venice pulled 125 for having the Mamluks survive and all their original provinces and the most Italian allies. They didn't manage to prevent the sole defender of the Catholic faith. That really is very, very difficult unless France or England is willing to help you. The problem was Spain had held the papacy, I think, for 3 rounds already when the second Reformation event came. So there was no way to take it away from them easily. Maybe they had held it 4. I don't know. Anyway, I'll add those points up, come back, show you what the totals are, and then we'll wrap this one up. And here's how those totals shook out. Portugal with a huge 301, Venice 131, England at 96, and I think they're doing quite well. But we'll see. Maybe the events aren't going to be, maybe with the new events, the Risto events, maybe Portugal's not so hosed by taking Russia. But you can see, this is not a balanced game. I mean, historically, Portugal was more or less left alone, and most of the players want to leave them alone, but they can run away with this even without getting good events. I mean, things didn't go well for them at all. They failed at Goa. They didn't get the colonies settled in North America that they wanted. Yet they still pulled about twice what anyone else has. Well, more than that. Anyway, 96 for England, right? And then here we got 51 for Spain, 46 for Turkey. That's in the, hey, at least we didn't lose points for the period, but you're expected to get a decent amount. That should be about 100, I would say, to be anywhere on track. And poor France at -8. They're just struggling. They haven't gotten any of their goals, and they really are going to try to take it out on Spain at this point. They feel like Spain denied them goals for very little reason, and they want to make Spain pay. But it's hard to make someone pay in this game. Wars generally aren't too good for you. As the war drags on, it's going to cost both sides points, and it becomes less and less likely for a decisive victory. This may be as decisive as it's likely to get, to tell you the truth. Usually, the best advantage in a war is when you just get the drop on somebody with the technology, like, say, France did on the first turn or Turkey did on the first turn, and you can really hammer them. And then maybe convince them, hey, the peace isn't that bad off of it. But in this case, well, Spain wasn't willing to accept France's demands, and France is really quite upset about that. All right, well, we're going to push this forward. We're going to get a couple new leaders here. Andrea Doria over in Genoa, just in case they come into play. Almeida in Portugal. And Ali Bey, who's A ranked. That means he's as well ranked as the Grand Vizier, which is very cool because you always want... The Grand Vizier is not terrible. He's bad in combat, but his siege advantage is kind of a neat thing. But he's the A-ranked Turkish leader, which means the biggest Turkish army is not going to be a good field battle army most of the time. And there aren't good leaders to make up for him. I kind of wish when there's a named Turkish leader he wouldn't be in play, because he outranks quite a few of them. And I don't really feel those named Turkish leaders were usually the guys leading the big army, not the generic Grand Vizier. One thing it could mean, though, is that Turkey has to maintain a much larger army than most people in order to find a space for him. Anyway, this is going up, and then we'll pick victory conditions, etc. for the new period 2. We'll be rolling new events. The political events are on another booklet. This booklet is mostly done. It's possible to jump back to it, though. But I got a table set there. And, well, let's see what happens. So far, I'm not thrilled with what's happening. Just in terms of, I feel like I'm pulling a lot of incompetence with the countries. But I'm not sure it's that. A couple of bad weather turns. What were there? 3 out of the 6 turns were bad weather. That really has an impact on what you can get done. Anyway, up this goes.